All right guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're talking wedges, and specifically we're talking about maximizing control when we hit our wedges into the green. I think by now, watching the channel, I'm sure various others, you guys know how to create some spin. You know some of the elements that are essential to hitting those shots with control. But today, we're going to talk to you about one key component to the wedge shot, the high spin wedge shot, which I guarantee you guys don't know about. All right guys, I've picked a target today out there about 60 yards, something really comfortable in the partial wedge sort of distance that a lot of players are very uncomfortable with, in all honesty. There's not really a club in the bag that goes 60. It's taking something off one of your wedges, and really whichever one you're most comfortable with, that will vary from player to player. I think this is a shot that really everyone should practice a lot more, because it's one of those distances, whether you hit it up close to green, a par 5 for example, or a short 4, and you can get up and down for a birdie. You maybe hit it in trouble and you've got to wedge it to the front of the green and you're left with this, again, awkward yardage, and you've got to get it up and down for par. They're momentum savers, and they're really sort of, round saving shots that you guys really should have. So I want to talk you through how I would do that as a baseline. Okay, so I'm going to keep the same club for all these shots, and really essentially I want to show you what I would do in this situation on a day-to-day basis, and then I want to let you guys see how, if I had to play something that had a little extra sauce, maybe had a different component, that the pin was right at the front of the green, tucked behind a bunker, and I had to try and access it under a lot of pressure, what I would do in that instance. So in the basic shot, I'm going to play this back in my stance. I'm going to play the handle forward. I'm going to play this as more of a driven hop, and stop type of shot. And I think that should be your bread and butter. I think that's what you guys should lean on more often than not, especially if the pin is middle to back. That's where we should be certainly trying to get to. So let's have a look at that first. A basic setup. One maybe a little key thing I do that I think could help you guys a lot. I've probably talked about it in other videos, but if you haven't seen those, this is a little insight into maybe one nuance that I do slightly differently on the day-to-day kind of partial wedge shots. I don't stand with my feet open. I think when you see lots of people hitting wedge shots, you see the stance a bit open. Most people say, well, the swing's shorter, so the body doesn't have as much time to clear. For me, when I see people doing that, and I'll hit a couple just to demonstrate why I don't do that, I think you get a feel for how hard you need to hit the shot. Open your body. And you set yourself up. And you don't create enough energy, right? You look at that club path, 5 degrees out to in. You see the dynamic loft a little on the high side, 50. And you see a scenario where you think you know how hard to swing. You've just not set yourself up for success. I don't do that in the basic wedge shot. I actually set up for a draw. I pull my right foot back a little bit. I intentionally swing a little bit more from the inside with a little bit more of a, what I'd say square, but square to shut club face. What that does for me is it shallows out the angle of attack. It gets me feeling like I'm hitting a nice little topspin forehand, and that's what's going to ensure that I can send this in a bit lower, and it's going to hop, and stop like we talked about. So let's hit one of those. I mean, that is pretty much it. So I like to send it in there, kind of like medium trajectory, not high, not low by any means, but you saw the end of that wedge shot. It kind of rolled out like a putt. And I think that's the way it should roll out, especially, again, if we have that mid to back pin. I'll hit one more. Right foot back, club comes out, or the backswing takeaway gets a little bit more inside wedge. The face gets a little bit shut in the wedge. Let's hit that in a little tad lower even than that last one. Okay, in there nicely. And you can actually see he's got a little bit of draw spin too, but the path is entirely different. It's no longer 5 degrees out to in, it's 8 degrees in to out. So that to me is stock, bread and butter. I'll do that all day, every day. But we're not going to get the control that we may need should we have that difficult short-sided shot. We're certainly not maximizing spin in any which way. So let's start talking about how to manipulate that component of things a little bit. Delivered loft, obviously we have to start there. That had 43 degrees of delivered loft. We have to get that up into the mid-50s, right? We have to start there. We are going to create a little bit more loft. We're going to create a little bit more friction. So that's where I'm going to start to probably neutralize the club path a little bit. So let's look at this. Okay, so the stance is a little bit more neutral. Handle is a little bit more neutral. I'm looking for about 52 degrees of delivered loft and more of a neutral path. Neutral, we're going to stop it pretty quickly. I was looking for 52 degrees of delivered loft. I got 51 out of 50.7. So spin increased and height increased. We got a little bit more stopping power on that, guys. Club path, we tried to neutralize from 8 degrees into out. It's now 1 degree into out. So now we've got up our sleeve we're building a little repertoire of shots. That would be considered by most people's standards, a really nice wedge shot, and mine included, by the way. I would be over the moon if I hit, a nice wedge shot into green like that. But that's not a wedge shot that is going to really, rip back and spin. So let's start to create that a little bit more. Let's try and create a touch more spin. All right, so we talked at the start about we didn't really want an out to in path on the neutral wedge shot, on the stock wedge shot. That is correct. But when we're trying to create as much spin as we possibly can, guys, we want as much speed in there as we can. The way of offsetting the amount of speed that we put in with the amount of speed that we get out in terms of the ball speed is by having a little bit more of a glance and blow across it. So that gives me the ability to create more friction by kind of swiping across the ball, having the grooves really cut into the cover of the golf ball in order to create as much spin as we possibly can. So where I want you guys to look on the numbers here is we went from kind of, if we can pull up one of those first low wedge shot staircase. I want to just look at perfect. So we've got the low one, we've got angle of descent. On the last one, 38. First one's was 40, so we're about 40. We've increased that to 45, and I love that we're going in 5 degree increments here because that's how my mind works. It's 40, 45, and now I'm thinking we have to land this golf ball at 50 degrees in order to create that spin. And let me show you if I don't do that. I can create high spin, but I won't create the shot that peels back. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, spin previously was 7,600, so quite good. A good amount on a 60-yard shot. So let's increase the spin maybe to 85, 8,600. But we're still, again, we're not yet giving you guys the wedge shot that really peels back. Okay, driven in there. So spin's kicked up about another 500, but we didn't get it to spin back because we had the angle of descent at 41. So let's start increasing spin and increasing the angle of descent. Let's watch what happens. And let's look at the delivery, because ultimately I want you guys to have the recipe. There's no point in me giving you the sort of here's the meal, here's the meal that we're going to make. I've got to give you the recipe and how to make it so you guys can leave today being able to recreate. Okay, so let's get that angle of descent 45 and spin at 85. Little bit more jazz in that. So we get 83.54 in the spin. We got 44.5, okay? Pretty decent effort. And we saw the first indication of a little bit of pulling of the string just to pull it back. Let's go again. Much better. Okay, we kicked the spin up to 95 there. We actually kept that ball short of the pin as well. So angle of descent 46, 45 was the aim, but we're now starting to get into the territory of what we really need to do. You guys are starting to see it now. We're drawing the ball back really, really comfortably. I'm starting to slightly get across it with the path, 1 degree, 1.5 degrees. I'm not too steep on it. I'm not certainly taking huge divots out there. I'm only 4.7 degrees down. So you can see I'm not really doing anything extreme. I'm stacking the odds in my favor by having all of the things that I can do to set myself up for success. A high amount of friction. That means a high amount of speed. I've got to try and create a high amount of launch angle. Right now, launch angle is at, angle descent, launch 34. So I'm going to try and get that launch angle to about 40. And now I'm going to try and get angle of descent to about 50. That's where you're going to start to see the types of shots that people scratch their head when they see a Justin Thomas or a Jordan Spieth or a Tiger Woods was unbelievable in his prime. Phil Mickelson, incredible in his prime. Short-sided, and they're ripping it back on the green. How do they do that? Angle of descent. It's not the spin, guys. I can hit a ball in here with lots of spin and it does not spin back. It will stop and maybe back up a little bit. If I can get that ball to land as steep as I possibly can, trust me, we can get that thing ripping back. So we've got this at 60 yards. Let's try and get the ball to fly about 64, 63, 64, because we don't want to be hitting it short and pulling it back. We saw too much of that at the Ryder Cup, and we saw how difficult it was at times for the players to actually control their distance from the pin, the proximity. Let's go a little bit longer and let's start playing this to our advantage. I'm going to land it at the flag. I mean, that's came back a good 3 yards there, I would say. Okay, guys, so that one was almost perfect. It was almost exactly as we drew it up. We had the peak height at 46 feet. We had the angle of descent. Remember we started this at 38 to 40, somewhere in that window. We're now up at 50 degrees. So we've changed how that angle is coming in. So the ball is no longer coming in sort of shallow and then bouncing forward. We're trying to get this to come in as steep as it possibly can. If we can create a deadening effect by getting that ball to just drop as vertical as we can, we'll never really get it to drop vertical, but the more that we can get the ground, the surface of the green to absorb the energy of the golf ball, the more that we can then allow the spin to kick in and pull the ball back. That's how the best players in the world create the amount of stopping power and the amount of pullback. It's not that they create an amount of spin that I can't create. That's not the case at all. 10,600 from 60 yards is an unbelievable amount of spin. But it's the ability to manage land angle that separates the elite wedge players from the players who just cannot pull off this type of shot. So let's give ourselves one more go at this. I'm going to clean the grooves, an essential part of any high spinning wedge shot. We got to get the grooves clean. Just to show you guys, I mean, there's that last wedge shot that I just hit there, right? That's the amount of golf ball that has come off the cover. It is, we are really ripping and pulling at the cover of the golf ball. For those who don't know what that is, it's a groove it brush. Essential to anyone who wants to maximize control with their wedges or really any club for that matter. But again, you can see we're not overly steep there. I think that's one misconception that I really want to extinguish in this video. You do not have to hit down to create spin. It is absolutely not the case. You do have to create loft to create spin. You have to have the ability to retain as much loft as you can. That does start to come from this path being out to in. We talked about it being a little bit in to out with the normal one. This is the high spin specialty shot. This is the Hollywood shot that we want you guys to learn. And trust me, if you guys get good at this and you pull it off in a match with your friends or somebody, even better that you don't know who's not expecting it, this will be something, a real party trick to pull out, when you most need it. So again, we're setting ourselves up a little bit out to in. I'm not putting the ball position back. I'm not looking for that. It's about 64 yards in the carry. Oh, it's a great shot. Lands in the hole, bounces out the hole. Just shows you, I mean, I'm trying to hit this hard, guys. When you start creating energy in terms of input speed, but you're not creating the ball speed because I'm glancing across it with a high amount of loft, you've got to hit this shot really, really hard. And actually, that's what creates the spin, is the amount of friction you can create by the speed. $61, pulled it back to 59. Okay, we're about max out. Gotta give it one last try. Gotta get the loft higher. Gotta get this to launch higher and deliver more loft. 11,000 spin. We certainly hit it a bit further. Yeah, we're kind of maxing out around that 58 degrees of delivered loft. We're seeing that 51 on the land angle because we created a little bit more speed. We probably were robbed of a little bit of that pullback just because of the strike was a hair on the low side, 11 millimeters. But you guys get the point. You get where I'm going with this, and hopefully now you understand the concept of really maximizing spin. And it's not so much even the maximizing of the spin, as I say, it's letting the spin take effect. The spin cannot take effect if the golf ball is coming in shallow into the green. You can certainly maybe hop and skip it. Think back to Rome, the side of the 17th green in the match on the Saturday evening when Rory hit that unbelievable open face wedge shot against Patrick Cantlay that ended up in nearly a fight with Joe LaCava. You guys will remember that shot where Rory had the face literally wide open. He had that face open so he could create speed in order to create friction. That ball came in so low, so hot, and all of a sudden it grabs right at the death, right next to the hole. It's not going to be that type of shot. This is going to be the shot that lands beyond the flag and then pulls back 10 feet. And as I say, that can be to get you out of jail in a tough spot if the pin is obviously tucked behind the bunker, that type of thing. It's about the land angle. That's the punchline of this video, guys. Okay, hopefully you've got the ingredients. Hopefully you've got the concept down. I really think that if you guys will go out and apply this and, you know, take your own clubs and maybe a bag of golf balls, some old Pro V1s or whatever, something that's got urethane cover. Don't go out and try and do this with two-piece golf balls with a really firm cover. You won't be able to achieve it. There's no way I could achieve it. You've got to have the right tools for the job, okay? All right, as always, let us know in the comments, once you've tried this, how does it work for you? Were you able to master it? Were you able to get the loft high enough? Were you able to get the angle of attack shallow enough in order to create the right type of ingredients to hit the high spin shot? We'd love to hear from you guys. Stay tuned for more. We'll see you again soon.